Imagine you are in a cafeteria with your team, you're taking a dinner, and someone casually asks you, so what is the real difference between junior engineer, mid-level engineer, and senior engineer? And your mind blanks. You try to explain this, you start using words like impact, like ownership, but in the middle of your explanation, you start feeling that the room disengages. Your team is not buying it. And if you cannot explain the difference extremely clearly, your developers will not trust you as someone who can guide their careers. And this kills trust fast. In this video, I will teach you a mental model that will help you describe the difference so clearly that you can use it even if someone wakes you up in 3 a.m. in the morning. So next time when you ask, you will be answering with confidence, you will earn the trust of your team, and you will feel like a manager people look up to. Let's start from junior. So junior engineer is the one who really requires guidance. So they are not autonomous at all. And also they require ticket definition so that they are very clear what they have to do and how, right? So they require this support and they are going to be stuck and they will require someone mid-level, senior, or others engineers to come and help them unstuck. So that's relatively simple, and that's junior. Mid-level engineer is actually the level of engineer to whom you can dedicate a whole feature to develop, right? So you can give them the feature and then you ask them to define this feature better, because no feature by product manager will be defined in a way that you can immediately start working on them and it's like absolutely clear, right? So you would expect from mid-level engineer to go talk to product manager to clarify the requirements for the feature, then work to split this feature into maybe some subtasks. They will define this subtask in a very specific way so that junior engineer can take those tickets and work on. As you can probably imagine, mid-level engineer has already the autonomy, so they do not require someone to guide them, they do not require someone to help them, they can move on their own and they can actually give a guidance to junior level engineers. So basically, at the end of the day, mid-level engineer can really deliver a useful feature to production. A senior engineer is also someone who can deliver a useful feature to production. But something that was always disturbing to me is how do I differentiate between a senior and mid-level engineer who also delivers feature to production. And after thinking deeply about this problem and discussing with other colleagues, I came to the conclusion that the difference, and this is very easy to remember, should be whether or not the senior engineer is going to make a architectural decision, right? And now you might be asking, what is architectural decision? And the answer is any technical decision that is very hard to change, right? So for example, the method of the name of the method or the function is something that is very easy to change, right? You just click refactor and the name of the function changes. But if you are going to change, let's say, the name or the structure of an API that is being used by thousands of users, this is already much more complicated to change, and can be taken as an architectural decision. If we are talking about the change, for example, the programming language that is being used, this is also very hard to change, and this can be considered as architectural decision. So if a senior engineer or engineer needs to make a feature, they go into the code and then they realize that they don't have for them prepared a way to go, right? There has to be some decision made. And if this decision is something that is going to be like long living and guiding principle for the whole team to move on in the future, this is a senior engineer work. So let me give you an example. So imagine your team has to develop a chat application, like a small part of some other big app that you are developing. And then engineer comes in and he or she thinks, okay, I have to develop this application, but I know that in other part of this app and other maybe team in the past have developed very similar piece of software. So maybe instead of developing this on our own, we can reuse this application that or like sub application in our application, right? So basically, this is a like architectural decision, because for that you have to maybe extract a separate package or extract a separate service, and then you have to reuse it in the old place and also reuse it in a new place. Maybe you will have to make these things more abstract so that this can be used in two places, right? So this is a lot of engineering and technical work to do, and one person can do successfully this kind of tasks and at the same time provide the qualities of your system, right? They provide the maintainability, usability, and also deliver obviously much earlier, right? So the time to market is better. Then you can safely say, yeah, this person operates on a senior level. Now, some companies do have a next level for senior engineer. They usually call it staff or principal engineers. And in case that your company does have it, and you have to manage these kind of people, or you need to help those other engineers to grow into staff and principal engineers, you will have to understand what is it and how they are different from senior engineers. And I actually did have staff engineers, and for me it was also very difficult to understand what is the difference, and the framework that I came up with is basically whether or not the architectural decisions that this person has to make impacting or influencing other teams or not. So that's simple. So if the architectural decisions, so the ones that are very hard to change, they only impact your team, then this person operates on just a senior level. But if you have to change the organizational part of the system, I mean architectural part of the system, and this will impact other teams or other products, and this will also require for this engineer to collaborate and coordinate this change with other teams, then this is a staff level work, right? So simple as that, right? If there is a need to go and talk to other teams and represent your team technically and coordinate the work on some technical implementation, whether it's maybe architectural restructuring of the architecture or implementing some feature which requires actually the changes of architectural decisions and coordination of this change, then this person is staff engineer. And talking about the example, we can again go back to example that I gave when we were talking about senior engineer, and you might actually notice that in that example that senior engineer was going and talking to the other team, right? But again, if this person has to work on this chat application and and you want to reuse some other chat application. If your team owns that some other part, then this is a senior level work. But if that other chat application that you want to reuse actually belongs to the other team, right? They own it, and now this engineer who is given this task, to implement this chat application, has to go to other team, maybe to few other teams, talk to their staff engineers, and coordinate the work and discuss the potential options. How do they approach the reuse? Right? Should they extract something into other packages? Should they make your team depending on their team's part of the application, and so on? So there are many changes and many decisions to be made. And if this person has to do it, this is a staff level work. And you can imagine the bigger the scope, basically the larger amount of people an engineer has to talk and coordinate with, the more soft skills this person will need, and the more, let's say, staffish level they become. Okay, and that's basically it. So junior is a developer who is given very defined tickets, and they are not autonomous. They rely on others. Mid-level engineers, they are able to actually deliver bigger features. They can decompose this feature into smaller tasks, define them better, and they can support junior engineers. They become autonomous. Senior engineer, basically the same as mid-level engineer, but they are able to basically change the architecture of the system and maintain the qualities of the system on the high level, right? And the staff or principal engineer is the same as a senior engineer, but this person operates on a systems architecture on a higher level than their team, right? So basically, they will have to cooperate with other teams to be able to deliver. So this is a simple framework which you can remember all the time when you ask on one-on-one, when you ask on a dinner, when you woken up in the middle of the night, you will be able to remember and explain the difference. And this simple framework will also help you guide yourself when you will be trying to figure out how to actually promote your developer. Now there is another problem that you might face, is that engineer who might want to become a next level, or maybe they are already on the next level, but they are working on the features or tasks that do not feel like they are on their levels. They might be a little bit worried. Those who want to get promotions, they might be saying that they are not having enough tasks that would help them to grow. And those who have already been promoted might be asking themselves, why are we doing tasks that are not on our really level? And the thing is that this is something that's happening in every industry. And just take as an example the work of surgeon, right? There are many surgeons to whom you could go and ask them to take out the stitches after some injury, right? And they would do this kind of work all day long. Maybe they would stitch together some small wound, or they would take out stitches when someone comes to them, or they would just look into some kind of a wound that people might come to them and complain that it hurts or something. But you can imagine the surgeon is capable of doing much more complicated surgeries, right? But they don't do it every day. And only sometimes they have to actually apply all their skills, all their experience to solve the complicated cases. And I imagine and I believe this is very similar to what our engineers are doing, right, day to day. So most of the time, senior or maybe even staff engineer might be doing the work of a junior engineer. So basically, just delivering some small task, or maybe mid-level engineer just to deliver autonomously some kind of a feature. Um, but at some point, they will have a situation where the architectural change is needed, where architecture that we currently have is not capable to carry out the need of the feature, or there is a requirement to change architecture in a way so that we should go and talk to other team. And in these cases, these engineers who are of a higher level can apply actually their skills and execute their capabilities, right? And from this point of view, I think developers who are not executing every day on the peak of their abilities should be relatively calm, because this is actually what the work is, right? Most of the time, you will be executing simple work. And for those who want to get promoted, um, they need to understand that they will have to wait for the opportunities for them to come. Sometimes in the smaller companies, these opportunities will never come, and then if people really want to grow, you have to let them go. You have to tell them, okay, if you want to grow even further, you probably have to go to the company that has more such opportunities. But overall, your job as a manager, if you want to grow people, you have to be a sponsor. You have to be looking all the time into the projects that are coming, and you will have to be thinking all the time about people and their desires to grow and match those so that they can at some point get a stretch and work on the next level that they want to work for. And by doing that, you will be getting a real signals that this person was able to deliver something that is considered to be of the next level. And when you get enough such signals, you can actually then promote the person. You can show why this person has been promoted, or if you have a committee, you will have enough of signals, concrete signals to describe in your promotion documentation. And finally, guys, I want you to remember those things are just mental models. Other companies, other engineering managers might have different mental models. I shared mine so that you can think about yours. And if you have very different model to think about these kind of things, to think about the differences between levels, please let me know in the comments. And if you have questions, I will be more than happy to answer those questions in the comments. See you.